everyone, welcome to New Breakpoint. My name is Michelle Sandford and I am the Developer Engagement Lead for Microsoft in Asia. New Breakpoint is a show for developers by developers, and we are super excited to be here this week for another customer episode. We will be online all through this episode answering your questions, and we'll try and hang around for about 10-15 minutes at the end to answer any follow-ups that you might have. So feel free to put them into the comments at any time. Welcome to this month's episode. I have with me Martin Taylor from RAC. He is the engineering lead over there. Hey, Martin.
Hi, Michelle. How are you doing?
Tell me a little bit about engineering culture at RAC. RAC is definitely one of my favourite customers, and their culture is one of the things that I loved from going in there. They gave me a card and they let me just hang out with them all. Why don't you tell me from your perspective, Martin, all about the engineering culture at RAC and how it's evolved to have more of a focus on developer productivity?
So I started at RAC about 6 years ago. 6 years this July. And back then we were just starting our cloud journey, migrating our on-premise data center and all of its applications, obviously, up into the Azure cloud. It was still very much a typical sort of engineering culture of developers develop code, operations deploy code and build the applications, and there was very little in terms of sort of cross collaboration outside of the just design phases. And it was a bit more of a you hand your code over, they deploy it to production, and that's about how it goes. Cloud brought a new perspective to that. It brought new challenges, but also new perspectives and new opportunities for us to work together more, with engineers taking on a bit more of that responsibility of the release pipelines. So not just running the pipelines, but also developing and maintaining them, as well as the infrastructure. So the more we implemented infrastructure as code and pipelines as code, the more we were cross-collaborating and working with different teams, different roles in ways we hadn't done before. During that time, during the past 6 years, I guess, we've gone from being multiple different teams, being different sort of capabilities, to more cross-functional teams. We have implemented various sort of new delivery models as part of that. So we've done embedded DevOps, embedded operations. We have done DevOps as a lesser capability, more of everybody's responsible for different parts. And the more we have matured in that space, the more that we find that we've got more reusable patterns. That's for infrastructure as well as sort of your code patterns, more shareable pipelines. And so we've realized that we can cross-collaborate with other delivery teams as well as just other capabilities. And we were finding that because we were trying to share a lot of things, we were stumbling across new challenges where that meant we had lots of different implementations of the same thing that were all always varying slightly. So, and that can add its own delays and its own struggles when you have to then duplicate and change it just to work for you, and then things get out of sync very quickly. So we've actually started to come up with, we've actually implemented newer roles such as dedicated enablement and developer experience teams, which their role is to bring all that together and create some consistency and bring those teams together closer by making things more reusable. Our infrastructure to create modularized patterns and enabling features in GitHub that actually allow us to share those pipelines, share that code between teams without actually needing to copy and paste things all the time.
Actually, there is something that really impressed me about RACWA quite early on in this transformation journey. It was the certification stuff that you all did. Jamie, your CIO, really partnered with Microsoft Worldwide Learning Teams to encourage all of the people across, I don't know, was it across your IT teams or was it across the business to follow the certification pathways and get some certifications?
The focus was primarily within the IT teams, of which we highly encouraged and provided the capacity within the teams to become certified. So providing that professional development time within our day-to-day working hours, I guess. But we certainly encouraged other roles that were working with us to do Microsoft certifications, because the more that other people could learn how we work and what we do through the Azure Foundations pathways. So things like AZ 900, I think it's SC 900. I can't remember the Dynamics one, but the foundational courses and the foundational certifications. By doing that, other business units and other sort of capabilities across the business understood how we worked better. And that allows communication, frees up that communication. If they can understand a bit more about what we talk about and what we're working on and the complexities of it, that gives them more insight so that they can communicate better what their needs are and how we can better support them. But we've definitely been encouraging people to be more certified across the board. We have many people that are certified Azure developers, operate like the cloud operations. Most of them are certified. We've got dynamic certifications. We're now going into the security certifications as well. Definitely been highly encouraged and supported from Jamie.
I think it really speaks to like the cultural change that you've built, that culture of continuous learning across the team. And I think my favourite story is Jamie's executive admin. She learned how to build apps through that certification program, and she built a few, I think, from there. And I'm not sure if she moved roles or whether she does that from her existing role, but I know she's always been super full of ideas and full of creative energy, which combined with a technological uplift really enables her to do anything that she wants to.
Yeah, that's been I guess one of the biggest benefits of doing this as well. It's not just the technical people doing those courses either. It's we've got agile coaches that have done some of the courses. We've got data analytics that have moved to more engineering courses. We've got administrative staff and support staff that have been doing them as well. It's not just this applies directly to your role, therefore you do this course. You can do any course you want, and it allows those people to skill up and become more technical, and gives them an opportunity to work in other areas of the business as well, and just better their skills and do fun things.
Yeah, great way to diversify your workforce. So people who have existing domain expertise in perhaps business units or other that were previously non-technical roles can now step across and do technical roles better because they have that existing domain expertise now augmented with the technical expertise.
Yes. And we've actually seen that across business units. We've seen people come from the finance department, accounts department into the dynamic spaces and go from being sort of the domain experts, as you say, into the technical implementation experts. And that is invaluable, really. It's hard to get domain experts. It takes a long time to become a domain expert. And it doesn't matter how much, doesn't matter what technical skill level you're at. If you don't have the domain knowledge, it's difficult to implement things.
Yeah, easier to go the other way around. Cool. So, DevX and your cloud teams have been working together to implement new stuff. What's going on there?
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, we've got a new developer experience team, and they've been working with the cloud teams and even the other engineering teams. So as of recently, we sort of restructured, well, I say about a year ago, but it's been ongoing for a while. So our roles if I can remember correctly, currently we've got sort of the software engineering side, and we've also got cloud engineering side as being sort of our two main capabilities, with DevX being our developer experience, being a team within the engineering space. Across all of those teams, we've been developing features that improve the developer experience overall. So as we were talking about earlier, we've put a focus on increasing developer experience, increasing developer productivity, and putting time into building features for us to make our day-to-day lives easier. So building new applications, so greenfield apps would be faster. So we've adopted GitHub, so migrating over to GitHub from Azure DevOps. So Azure DevOps was where we first built everything over the first, 4 years, I think it was, as our cloud adoption. And then we're now migrating over to GitHub. We've migrated all of our repos over because we liked the repo management within GitHub itself. And we're slowly starting to migrate all of our GitHub Actions, all of our pipelines over to GitHub Actions and GitHub Workflows. And as we're doing that, we've put a focus on actually creating an experience from the ground up rather than trying to retrofit backwards, of creating features within GitHub that allow us to do things easier. So having a centralized repo management service where engineers or leads don't have to worry about setting up a repo and having to remember what settings to configure, and we don't have to go to an admin and put a request in for an administrator to go and configure the branch policies. It's all managed under a centralized repo, and it's data-driven as well. So easily creating a new repo via a simple pull request that by default will add on all of your branch protection, your branch checks, so making sure that your tests pass, that the security checks are all passing, that you've got your relevant reviews by your relevant teams. All of that gets implemented by default for you, and all you need to do is put a tiny couple of lines of code into a YAML file, and off that will go. And we've also done things like shared pipelines. So we've got reusable workflows and reusable actions across various different teams that are shareable and mean that we don't have to rewrite the test steps. We don't have to rewrite the deployment steps. So we've got, and the contributable, is that a word? Anybody can contribute to them. It's not just owned by a single team. It's a shared service. The DevX teams have been dedicated to enabling that for us and providing those capabilities, but everybody can improve them and contribute to them. We've also recently trialed Copilot as part of our developer experience improvements. Mm-hmm. And from that, we actually concluded, but the results showed, so we did tests over 3 months of I think it was time to PR and time to merge, size of PR, and just general developer experience. So a little survey to engineers, so how they were feeling about I guess developing and writing code. And we did see a significant improvement. Now, we can't guarantee that was Copilot. There's obviously a lot of factors that go into it, but we saw an improvement of PR size, where PR sizes actually went up a little bit, but the cycle time reduced significantly. I think it was from something like 9 days to 4 days in terms of cycle time. So, yeah, so writing more code, writing it faster, code quality increased. There was an 80% response rate of 80% of people that responded were feeling good about Copilot and felt that it helped them. I was on the trial and I personally felt that it helped me a lot. It helped me just, especially with new technology, like we've just started using Next.js and I wasn't very familiar with Next.js at the time, and just helping me figure out how to write tests, just giving me the structure that I need to write the test, even if I had to go and edit the internal like logic to make it work properly or the way that I wanted to. It was significantly helpful and sped me up vastly. And even just the autocomplete that comes in there, I still find it very mesmerizing, or just crazy that we can do that already these days.
You know what I used it for a lot this weekend, and it's just such a simple thing, and I'm sure there's probably like a key code thing that you can do this with, but like the indentation, I would just, and I'd like do a lot of stuff, and then I'd just like highlight the whole thing and just say clean up that indentation for me, rather than going through to like each section that was underlined. And it was just so satisfying that it could do it so quickly. And the other thing was I had a bug in my code that I could not see at all, and I just said, find me the bug in the code, and it's just like, yeah, line 32, you're missing a line there. Simple as that. But how frustrating it is when you can't see the problems in your own code compared to being able to just ask it and just say, what is it? Tell me what I can't see. Cool. So what have you been working on recently that use all of these features?
The recent project that I've been on, I'm currently in a digital delivery squad, and the recent project has been to rebuild one of our digital member applications. And so we've taken just a small portion of it, not the entire application. We're going to migrate it in pieces, but taken a small portion of that, just a couple of pages, and build a completely new application utilizing container apps for the first time. To deliver the member portal. We call it My RAC. And so we've built that using container apps, trying to follow a Mac architecture, which, for those that aren't familiar with it, it's coined by the Mac Alliance. It stands for Microservices, API First, Cloud Native, and Headless. So our current application is a monolithic digital experience platform that is many years old now. It is in the cloud. We actually have it hosted in Azure on Azure App Services using App Service plans, and it's big, it's cumbersome, it's expensive to run, it's not very efficient or cost efficient. So like the resources that we need to run, because it's one monolithic application, you have to scale all the resources just to scale one part of the application. And so moving to a Mac architecture and going for a more composable digital experience platform, we can actually become more cost efficient in the areas that we need to be. So if we need to scale up one particular area of the site, we can scale just that one area. So if we get an influx of insurance claims, for example, we can scale just that site. If we get an influx of people wanting to purchase insurance or purchase any of our products, really, we could scale that product or that domain and not have to worry about scaling the rest of the site or the applications.
I know a lot of people, when they have like a really massive application, their first thought is, if we're going to move this, we should move it into Kubernetes rather than container apps. What was your thinking around that?
We're still, while we are quite mature and we've been doing this for 6 or 7 years now, we're still not a very complex set of applications, and we're not very big as an organization worldwide. We're only based in WA, and we only service WA. And so Kubernetes it's just too much for the size of application that we need. The learning scale of Kubernetes it's a steep learning curve. It takes a while to start with. And also it works for more, like, I guess, bigger monolithic applications that are more microserviced across a larger application. Our applications are still quite small, and so Kubernetes was just a bit too much for us, a bit too big, a bit too complicated for this type of application. Whereas, and also I believe that Kubernetes needs more of a dedicated team to maintain it. So we don't have that level of scale of delivery to be able to actually maintain a Kubernetes environment, whereas container apps was a much easier intro. It's much easier to get started with. Like, even within a couple of hours, we had container apps set up and running and had all of our code within it, and I think we even did it within a hackathon day, within 1 day hackathon that we had. I think it was a year ago now, actually. We actually managed to spin up a fully working application using Next.js and .NET backend and container apps, and had implemented most of the page we wanted to implement at a high level. And so container apps it's just a much simpler way of getting into containerization.
So really good with particularly web apps. So because it's a web application, that's even more ideally suited to container apps, I think.
Yeah, I find Kubernetes to be more about sort of your IoT, your more distributed services where you have a lot of data traveling and a lot of processing to do. Whereas when you're doing web apps where it's request based and it's just processing some basic data and sending data back and forth to your backend systems, much easier to manage. But that's not to say that we might not end up going to Kubernetes one day. Like, never say never, right? Because it's all containerization, the same container images can be reused in different locations. We could reuse these container images within app services. We could reuse them in functions if we wanted to. We could move to Kubernetes. So that's one of my favorite things about containerization is the flexibility of what it brings.
Well, don't keep us in suspense. Show us something. Let's see what you've been working on.
The demo I'm going to show today is loosely based on that, the application we're building, the new MyRAC. I've essentially cut and pasted much of that code. I'm going to share a lot of the reusability that we've found within that. With it being a demo, I have cut out some pieces of it to make it simpler to demonstrate. So while it is a almost real world example of what we have built, it's not quite your corporate level.
We understand you're not showing us the production code because, everyone would just steal it then, wouldn't they?
Exactly. So it's a container app-based application split up into sort of two sets of resources. We've got the shared resources, which is your container registry, so where we're going to put our container images. And for simplicity of this application, I've also put the app config and the key vault in there so that I don't have to keep populating the same things for every environment. And then you've got your actual application running itself. So there's a resource group which contains your container environment, and it's got your front end and your back end applications, or your container apps, which are taken from your front end and back end images. And these utilize Dapper to talk between each other, and also utilizes Dapper to talk to the app config and key vault. And what that means to us is that our backend doesn't actually need to know anything about the key vault. It knows that there is a key vault store, but it doesn't know what that key vault is. It doesn't know where the key vault is. Doesn't need to worry about the permissions for that key vault either, because that's all managed by the container environment and our configuration that allows the backend to utilize that connector. And the same with app config. And so we can manage the config of these here, and our backend code never has to worry about any of that. We've also got other resources within here, so we can connect to App Insights, which uses Log Analytics workspaces to store data. Also using the container environment to take the system and console logs from the app containers directly into Log Analytics workspaces as well. And the way that I've currently got this set up is the backend is not publicly accessible by the internet, but the front end is. So a human can request a front end, request a page from the front end, but they can't request anything from the back end. So adding extra layers of security there. What I have cut out here is network management. So using the default container app container environments network, rather than using the VNets within RAC, just for simplicity's sake and security here of this. But you can extend this to add in custom VNets if you want to add extra security for your application, and do VNet peering if you need to talk to other applications within your organization. That working, I have an example here of this currently running. And so here is the application. We're in what I have termed the prod environment. And for those that are familiar with RAC or are members of RAC, the My RAC application might not look that much different to the current version. We have changed the styling quite a bit. We have updated some of the functionality within there to give better functionality to members, and this should actually be live by the time for this recording. But the functionality is roughly the same. What we have done though is by rebuilding this application in container apps, we've actually provided a much faster experience. So loading the page is much faster. There's less for the application to do overall. So utilizing features of Next.js, utilizing features of caching features within the container apps themselves, we've actually managed to create a more efficient site. So a lot of this is pre-generated. Even though it's personalized, you can see that the login button is personalized. There's personalized content on this page. A lot of it is still pre-generated and pre-rendered to make that easier and faster to load, giving a much quicker content load to members so they're not waiting around for the blank screen. We've also, by doing that, we've created a better developer experience with the container apps, which means it's easier to implement new features, which means that if our engineers are happier and can develop faster, we can also produce better member experiences, and we can deliver more functionality to members in a lower cost to RAC, but ultimately to give our members a better experience and give them what they want. By putting that effort into the developer experience and recreating the applications in a way that works better for us, we can work better for our members. And in terms of how that looks in Azure, I currently have 3 resource groups running. I've got the RAC Breakpoint shared, and that one, this contains the registry. It contains a storage account. This storage account is for my Terraform state at the moment. That's all it's doing right now, but could be reused for other things. We have the app configuration, the key vault, and an action group that I was playing with earlier for some App Insights POC that I'm actually trialing. What I've found is using this here, trialing updating features in this demo has been easier to trial them in here, and play around with destroying and recreating things, that I'm actually porting stuff back into the learnings I've found here. I'm actually porting them back into the other application that we've actually got ready to go to production shortly. In the UAT in production resource groups, so these are just your typical, you might have 2 static resource groups or 2 static environments for your application. So you got your production environment, which your users would be using, and then you've got your UAT environment, which your internal internal business users would be using for testing and verifying and probably working with their applications as well. So the cross-application development. And within here, you've got your container apps, you've got your container environment, your analytics workspace, and managed identity. So this managed identity is dedicated to this UAT instance and is used to actually communicate with the resources here, such as the key vault and the app config, and the registry as well to download the images. Within here, so going to the front end here, we can see that we've got the front end URL for this. We've got the revisions. So I've got one revision currently using the front end container. And that's using image tag 0.1.16. And hopefully, if I haven't messed anything up, that should be one of the latest tags in the registry. So if we look at the registry, we can see here in the repositories that we've got the front end and the back end. And so if I look at, I think I was looking at the front end. Yeah, 0.1.16, that's also currently the latest version of that. And you can see here we've got tagging. So we've got some semantic versioning tagging of pull requests and the actually published version. And then the latest version just gets tagged to the latest as you typically would expect. And we can utilize these versions within our infrastructure to load different versions of that image. Now, that's useful when you're sharing resources and sharing images. So what I've done is, this is built from 3 different repositories. There's the shared template repository where the pipelines exist, the shared pipelines and the shared infrastructure modules exist. There's a backend repository that all its job is to do is to build and publish the backend image. And then we've got our app repository, which builds the whole app and deploys the entire application together. So if I show you that, well, we've got the 3 here. So we've got app, we've got backend, and we've got template. And so the backend code, if I show you this backend, so we've got a backend application. This utilizes a shared, actually utilizes 3 different shared workflows or actions to do its stuff. So the first one is a .NET coverage. So this is actually one of our reusable ones. I'm actually utilizing one that's already running. These other 2 I've copied and pasted to make them work in my own repos, but this is one that's actually in one of the shared repos that we use for GitHub workflows. Updating the version and then just building and pushing the container. And that's all this repo does. Like, we've got the code, we've got the configuration, we've got the Dapper components here. So if I want to run this locally, which I was doing earlier, it utilizes these Dapper components and to talk to those app config and key vault as well. So I don't need to set these up locally. They are running in the cloud and I can connect to them myself. So for anybody that might have been a little perceptive earlier, where's my window? I have a bug in my backend code right now. And I am showing 2 different roadside assistance products for a vehicle. One of them was actually cancelled, and so this isn't supposed to be displaying. It was cancelled a month ago. And that's because in the backend, there is a bug in our processor. So our product holding processor is saying that if today is before the cancel date, then we display the product. It's saying that it cancelled if the cancellation date is in the future. So what I'm going to do is just update that to be the correct thing. And if I was to run that now, what I will do is I'll put that back so I can demonstrate running locally. So, nope, wrong keys. So I'll run that locally. And while I'm running that, I'm also going to run my front-end application at the same time. So we can see we've got 2 instances here and I'm on localhost. So if I go and adjust that again to be the correct way, and I restart my application, I'm probably going to have to restart the front end as well because Dapper sometimes loses its connection. Once we've loaded, you can see here, you can see that it's loading the secret store and it's loading the app config store. And so I'm not putting any credentials into this. This is using my local AZ CLI session. So earlier today, I ran AZ login, selected the subscription that I wanted to connect to, and this is utilizing that session in Dapper to communicate to Azure. So I don't need to configure any of that here. The only configuration I have here is my Dapper components, which just say to use my my key vault and my app config. That's all I've done. And we can reutilize this exact same configuration using different credentials through our deployment pipelines or using the managed identity actually, to allow other resources to communicate with these same things. So now that's running. If I refresh this page, I should now only have one. So we'll fix the bug. I've tested it locally. And now if I nope, I don't want to switch to main. I want to create a new branch, feature, fix bug. So I'm just going to commit this. Normally in a typical software development lifecycle, I would probably write tests and execute my tests. Pretend that I did that here.
Of GitHub Copilot, write those tests for you.
Yeah, have GitHub Copilot write those tests.
And have it write the pull request as well.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. I haven't actually tried that out yet. I should.
It is the best thing ever. I mean, I love so many things about it, but like my pull requests prior to that being a thing would just be like, I made a change, or I updated a thing, or or would just be blank. Whereas now it will make that summary of the changes for you. It can read your code, it knows what you've changed, and it can even put deep links in there to the specific parts of the code so that reviewers can click on those links and go directly to it. Marvelous, magical stuff.
The technology and just the ease of it makes life so much easier.
And better, because future me is going to be so grateful, but also other developers on your team are going to be grateful.
Yes. And I just want to call it here, like, this is a very we're only touching the surface here. We're only touching the surface on some of the features we're utilizing. We've got other engineers and some of the other teams that have got full-on PR templates with checkboxes in them, with checklists of what you're supposed to do, with so many more useful checks or automations within here that uses either actions or uses the my brain has gone blank. The workflows within here that automatically do some of the versioning, which I've already got here. But we've got Git tagging as well. We've got workflows for tagging. We've got workflows for verifying that you've formatted your code correctly, that you've got your syntax correct, that your linting is done. So many different features that can be used here. That this is just breaching the surface on this.
I mean, I do everything from within GitHub. So I'm generally using Codespaces because I have a tendency to just mess up my local environments by being lazy and just saying, yes, download the new dependencies or whatever, just to do stuff. So I use Codespaces to stop me making a mess of my local environments. But all of the automations, all of the actions, everything that can be done from within GitHub, you used to have to come out and go to Azure and create the resources and create the storage and create all of the stuff in there. Now you can do it all from within GitHub itself. To me, just the lack of context switching now, that you can just stay in the zone, do everything from a single place, and have all of those automations, have all of those actions, have everything run, the security, it's such a time saver.
Yes, absolutely. And I did try and get Codespaces working for this application, but because I'm doing it in multiple repos, I was struggling with getting the sort of cross repo work. Doing Codespaces is still fairly new to me as well, but I have found it very, very valuable for sort of independent development work and running single applications that don't have many dependencies on them. They're great for just spinning up an environment, testing things, testing new structures, testing new packages, testing new technologies, without, like you say, without messing up your actual development environment or without messing up your local machine. Also really good for if you don't have a DevSpec machine, or maybe you're doing something else on that machine that's using up resources and you just need to offload some of that resource to something else. It's great. So as we can see here, so this, I've opened a PR and it's automatically triggered the build and push. So it's doing a build and test. So I've got a stage doing some testing. And if this was to fail, the PR would not be mergeable. We're doing an update version. So this is doing the semantic versioning for me. And then this is building and pushing the backend container. So this is on PR. So once this build and push is completed, within the registry, we'll see another version of this backend in here. And we've got different pull requests. You can see previous versions here. This one's actually the current version, I think, 11:07 a.m. It is 11:07 a.m. here, so this must be working very quickly, which is great. And so this can then be used by anybody, right? So this backend, it's a shared backend. I can test this backend locally if I wanted to. I don't have to be running my front end. This backend is supposed to be reusable by different applications. It's not a single backend for one application, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's supposed to provide functionality for depending on if people need it or not. And so with that publishing, I can now that this is published, I can now actually reutilize that in different places. So I could have other tests within here. I could spin up an entire application to run this and test this if I wanted to. But that was all too much for this demo. However, I do have my front-end application running. And if I go to my app one here, which is my repo for my application, I've got a workflow that I can manually deploy an application. And if I look at UAT right now, so if I go to my resource groups and I look at my UAT application, and I go to my UAT backend and containers, this is currently utilizing, when it loads, being slow for me today. There are no revisions in your container app. Why? What is happening?
Because you can't have a perfect demo, Martin.
No, it was going so well. UAT backend, why are you broken? I have credit, so it's not credit. Okay, let's forget about UAT for a moment. I don't know why UAT has broken. Is this one working? Is my production working? Yes, my production is currently using latest. Now, I wouldn't normally recommend manually deploying things to production from branches or using testings, but this is just a demo, right? This is
why
this is not real.
Pushing straight to production.
So let's do that. Let's just push to production because that's the one that's working right now. What I would say is you can add protections into these workflows. So before I run that, let me show you the application. So this is my application that builds and runs that whole thing. I have a build and deploy workflow, which is when I merge to main, this is what runs, and this is what deploys UAT in production from that main branch, which is what you would normally want. You would only want your UAT in production really going from main or from a release that you've tested, that you've verified, that you've done your relevant due diligence and checks to make sure that it's happy and it's good. We've got a dynamic environment pipeline, so the ability to actually, on PR of this application, it will actually spin up an entire environment for you, for your PR environment, so that you can test your code for that application, and then clean up once you've finished. And then this is the one that I'm about to show, is deploying an application, so manually deploying that application. This workflow is actually reused by this build and deploy environment one, but also I've got a manual trigger in here for workflow dispatch that if I give it an environment, a front-end tag, and a back-end tag, then it will deploy that for me. And this is also reusing one of those shared workflows. So I've actually got a shared workflow within my own repo that uses another shared workflow. So I've got workflow inception here going on. And this is the shared one that I've created in the other repo. So if I come here and I run this, and again, may the demo gods be with me. I've got my prod tag, my prod environment. We're going to use the latest front end still. And what I'm going to do is go and get the tag of that backend that I want. Repositories, backend, and I'm going to want PR12. That's the one I want to utilize. So where was I? Here. Of and run workflow. And all this is going to do, this just does some Terraform planning and Terraform apply. So this one should be fairly quick for that application. And so while that's running, what I want to demonstrate is, so we've got that pull request is open here. So we're going to test this PR now using that release here. But we can also test that locally. So I could run a Terraform apply from my local environment here. So within here, I've got my, nope, I'm on the API. Where's the other one? This one. Within here, I've got my infrastructure here. And so while that other pipeline is running, I can show you this. So this is my main.tf file. So this is my application and my environment. All it has defined here is the app name, the env name, and the container apps that I want to deploy. That's it. There's nothing else in here. All of the actual configuration is used in a shared module, which I have under a modules folder using Terraform modules, which is RAC container app. And this main file is the one that will actually do all of the deploying of all of those resources here. And this is the shared one. This is actually using Git submodules. Now, a lot of people might grumble or sigh at Git submodules. There are very specific use cases you would want to use them. They can get very complicated, but as long as you're keeping your repos small and your repos like simple and your workflows simple and strong, modules can be very, very powerful and can allow you to share code between repos without needing to do any crazy syncing of any of that. And so all I've defined here is a backend container using a bunch of defaults. So you can see that there's two different container apps here with different config. And that's because my module actually defaults a lot of the parameters that you need. And so I don't need to worry too much about that if I want to follow the default backend, for example. But my front end is a bit more complicated. I don't want to, I want it to be publicly accessible, but I don't want it to be fully publicly accessible to the entire world. So I've got some IP restrictions in here. My front end also has some different configuration variables and the likes, and also the choice of image used for the two is going to be different for obvious reasons. So if I go back here, that plan should have worked. And if I check in my plan, which you should always do, always check your plan. I was caught out yesterday when I forgot to check my plan and just applied it and realized that I'd provided a slightly different configuration variable. And instead of updating my existing environment, which I wanted it to do, it went and deployed an entirely different environment with a different name. But you can see here, it's doing some updates. So we're updating the backend from the current latest to PR12. And it's also updating my front end because my front end is configured at 0.1.16, but I've set it to latest here. And so if I go to the apply, yes.
I was just going to say, you have to hurry up now, Martin.
Oh, okay. I will get this done. My demos are taking longer than I thought then.
I told you there was going to be a lot.
Yes. So if I apply that now, that should then deploy this application. So if I go back to my prod application and go to my backend, that should currently be latest. If it's not applied yet, that's still latest, but this will then do the apply and change that to the latest version, I'm not going to get to show any of the other stuff. Oh, wow. See, I can talk forever. This is a problem. We know this. So, well, yeah, I managed to actually show some of these pipelines. So one of my favorite things about this that's become something that I'm very passionate about and trying to drive a bit more. And I want to clarify, I didn't actually write this sort of the dynamic deployment and cleanup. I took a lot of this from other people. Like, there's so many smart people at RAC that have been doing some amazing things. So, like, credit needs to go to them for most of this. But I'm very passionate about the being able to deploy a dynamic environment. So if I was to do a PR of this repo, it would create an entire environment for me for that PR's lifecycle. And then as soon as that PR was done, it would then destroy that environment. And you could run your UI tests on that and whatever you wanted to. So you can see here now, actually, my prod is now using PR12. So if I go back to my front end, and may the demo god still be with me, this should have fixed that bug. We should only see one. There we go. We only see one roadside assistance now, which I should only ever have one roadside assistance. They only give me one of those.
That truly was an episode of New Breakpoint for developers by a developer. And I know that I wish we could have gone on further, because I think that Martin had even more stuff he would love to demo to us, and that would be awesome. But unfortunately, we have run out of time. However, we are going to be hanging around for 10 minutes and answering any questions. So if any of you want to know more about how all of that stuff is templatized and automated, then, or even more about the developer experience at RACWA, then do ask those questions in chat and we will hang around and answer them. Thanks so much for joining us. You can find all of the resources on our GitHub, and we'll see you next time.